Hello, Midnight TCG members. This is Midnight Fox. We're coming to you with this week's Competitive Edge podcast. Due to a few technical difficulties, Genzo won't be able to join us this week for some reason. Probably storms. He's not coming through real well. So we have Genzaki recording for us, and we have Eddie Phoenix with myself.
Yeah, let's do this.
For those of you who don't read a whole lot in the chat box, this weekend we lost my little puppy. His name was Boo Boo. So this podcast is kind of dedicated to the memory of Boo Boo. We're going to be going over dueling Boo Boos, basically mistakes that people make in the game that could cost them games, so on and so forth. So maybe some pro tips to help you better your game. So the first area we're going to cover is going to be strategy skill. Basically, going and doing research. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of duelists make is they don't go out and research some of the engines that are available in the game, especially the top engines. Things that you're going to run into at YCSs, so on and so forth, like the Mermel engines, the wind-up engines, even though they're kind of dropping off a little bit. Even little simple Karkuriza, the hero stuff that's been popping up, the little rogue decks, not utilizing dueling network very well. Uh, One of the biggest mistakes I see players making is one activating key cards at the wrong moment. Like when I say researching a deck, knowing exactly when, pretty soon with Elemental Dragons hitting, exactly when the key point of their engine hits. You play Solemn Judgment before that key point. You waste half of your life points, and your opponent still gets through with the engine they were working on. So, knowing the timing, knowing the deck you're playing against. So, definitely going out scouting, playing on Dueling Network, getting to see some of the higher tier decks in action. You want to do your research, you want to read up on Yu Gi Oh! Wikia. Genzo puts up a lot of good information on our site, especially over deck types. So definitely take a look in there. You'll find a lot of valuable information, and you'll get to know some of the engines and know when to activate some of your key cards to shut down some of these engines that are going to be huge in the game right now, what we have, and what's coming. You definitely want to be prepared for that. Um, as far as strategizing, uh, make sure that you have synergy within your deck. You don't want to just toss this card in or this card in because you think it's great and you think it has to be in the deck. You need to make sure that you have the right combination that probably 80 to 95% of the time you're not going to draw into a dead hand. Odds are you're going to go at least one of your games, you're going to draw into a dead hand. But you really want to look at your cards when you're deck building to minimize your chance of drawing into a dead hand because just as much as player mistakes and misplays can cost you games, dead hands can cost you games. So when deck building, make sure that almost everything in the deck can work together. And finally, as far as the third point of that, just kind of scouting the area, watching what's going on at the YCS is trying to get a percentage of what's being played. You definitely want to plan for those decks like right now, Mermail and Prophecy, in the coming future, Elemental Dragons, Harpies, but you want to keep an eye on what's being played. Don't completely concentrate like your side deck and your extra deck solely around those because you are going to run into rogue decks but make sure that you have some side options against these decks you know you're going to run into at these events. So, Eddie, your thoughts on just overall strategy?
As far as strategy goes, there are a lot of points that I can say that I've been guilty of not planning ahead or planning for the moment, so to speak. I can't count how many times I've decided to also throw a deck together because I thought the idea was great, and then the deck not synergize, and then I just go, well, screw it, it doesn't work, and throw it away. But for me, it's already, like, as you explained, it's all about the thought process that goes into what you're going up against, and then what goes into that match. Because you will sit and you will think and you will dwell, what could I have done better once that match is finally done and over with. You're sitting there going, I could have done this, I could have done that. If I would have done this, maybe the match would have went longer, or maybe if I would have done this, it would have shorted out. Things like that. You don't want to sit and do that once it's all said and done. So be sure to do your studying, be sure to scout, all things like that.
I'm going to continue a little bit on that. Definitely assessing your plays after a game is a key part of strategy. You want to get as much as you can out of your deck. So it's not per se a bad thing to go back and look at what you did in the game and if there was something you could have done differently, because that can carry over to the next game.
Yeah.
But don't dwell on it. Because if you beat yourself down, you're just going to be like, well, I suck, and you're going to give up. And that's not the attitude to have.
That's what I probably should have said, but you kind of switched up the word up on that one.
So, is that your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, second point we're going to look at is overextending your hands. I want to give credit. The first part of that was Ginzo's part, that unfortunately his connection was bad, so he couldn't be in on the podcast tonight. Second point, which was my point, is not to overextend your hand. One of the big things I see a lot of players doing, and you don't see this with most of your top players because they've educated themselves well and went out and done that research, is people overextend their hands. You'll empty your hand into one play because it just seems super awesome. I'm going to take control of this. And then 99% of the time, your opponent has an answer in their hand. So if you have something in your deck that you know you can pull into fairly easily, definitely don't throw everything into one play. You want to make sure that you spread it out. If you've got game and you know your opponent doesn't have an answer, then there's not a problem with overextending. When I talk about overextending, that means saying your opponent has 3 cards in the back row, a couple cards in their monster zone, and they have at least 2 to 3 cards in hand. So probability-wise, your opponent's probably going to have an answer to whatever your hand or your field has in store for them. So you want to think of things strategically, and you want to plan, I like to say, plan 2 turns ahead. Some people may say that's bad, or maybe that's said wrong, but plan 2 turns ahead. Don't plan on emptying your hand in one turn. Make sure that you can stretch things out. With us having MST at 3, Zenmaines being able to pop things, Heavy Storm, Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force, everything that has all this destruction available to it. overextending is one of the biggest mistakes I think duelists can make in the game. And I myself am guilty of it at times, thinking, I got this game, and then that surprise hits me, Gorge, Trad, what have you. So definitely I want to say that's a dueling boo-boo. A dueling mistake, overextending your hands. What's your thoughts on overextending, Eddie?
I've seen a lot of times players will open up with the obvious, let's dark hole and let's heavy, and then let's try to get as much damage as we can, and then their hand sits not too much in it, but there's normally an answer in the back, sitting, waiting in the back row. It's a bit irksome when it happens, but at the same time, it's like the player knew what he was going to be doing. Maybe he planned a couple turns ahead, or maybe it was just like, some dumb luck. I don't know. I can't speak for everything, and I can't speak for Dueling Network, because Dueling Network likes to be an ass a lot, so...
I'll say that, less than a week ago, I was guilty of it. I overextended, thinking I had it, and the guy that I was playing come back from 900 with me at full life points and beat me because I overextended my hand. I think that's one of the big mistakes. You get too cocky, you get too sure that you have game in hand, and you overextend. And then you can't draw into the answers you need, because 99% of the time, most of what you're going to do that's going to be most effective is combo based. One card at a time doesn't solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we just figured we'd go over 3 subjects. So I'm going to pass it on to Eddie with his subject.
Well, my subject is a pretty simple subject in and of itself. It's definitely take the time whenever you're building your deck, or just as you play, be sure to read your card effect. There have been, and make sure you know that what these effects can do and can't do. So let's start out with reading your effects. When it comes to reading your effects, you want to make sure that something along the lines of like Gorge, Dragodia, Thunder King Ryo, Spirit Reaper, all those cards that have those first and secondary effects, you want to make sure that you take the time to read those. Or something along the lines of like Zenmaines. Zenmaines can only, and Fox, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, can only activate its little explodey effect once. Am I right?
It can only destroy once. Yes, during the end phase, and that's only if it's still on the field.
So if you want to go triple swing at it, you can swing 3 monsters at it and then be able to get rid of it. Or if you just want to swing 2 at it, excuse me, to be able to get rid of that little nasty effect of having it on the field, it can only blow up one of your monsters, or maybe your back row if they so choose. But,
We're planning for like a black ship play against it.
Yeah.
So that you can send it instead of destroy it.
That too.
Therefore, circumvent its effect.
Yes.
And I noticed that one of the things a lot of people forgot about with Thunder King Ryo is that, yes, he's great at negating summons, but since you talk about not fully reading cards, I don't know how many matches I've watched where people have forgotten that Thunder King Ryo also shuts down draw engines.
Yeah, that too.
So you're not paying attention, and your opponent's sitting here playing out a draw engine that is illegal.
Yeah, you could be sitting there stopping it the entire time, but you're just sitting there, you forget. I'm very guilty of forgetting.
Well, and also yourself, you could end up trying to go into a draw engine and forgot that you had Thunder King Ryo, which I've been guilty of in the past. So, not planning accordingly, throwing my Thunder King out, shutting down my own draw engine when I could have saved that Thunder King for later, when it could have possibly been more effective because I needed my draw engine, or waiting till later on in main phase 1 or even in main phase 2 to bring out that Thunder King so that I got off all my draw engine and then I shut down my opponent's engine.
Yep.
And, another one that's good contention is Tragedia. This card is very overpowered, very overlooked. A lot of people just run it just because, hey, I can bring out this free special summon monster with 600 attack per card in my hand. Hey, that's great. But you're forgetting you can mimic a card's level in your graveyard. You can discard a card from your hand, take your opponent's monster of the same level. A lot of people forget the extra effects.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a very good point. Is that people making sure that they are reading their cards fully. And I think you were mentioning it before the podcast. Some people look at a card and think, first glance, wow, this card is great. It's spectacular.
Actually, that was
just because they first, it was Enzo.
Yeah.
That first line. And throw it in their deck. Hey, well, this is going to be good. Then you get into the matchup and you're like,
well, this doesn't work out for me. Well, damn.
Yeah. I mean, a good example, I think he has potential playability. His bad part is his defense would be DD Esper Star Sparrow. Some people will contend that Gores is better, Battle Fader, Trag, which some people have their own thoughts, their own opinions, and they're entitled to that. But when you first think of that and you look at him, he's 10 stars, so he's Gustav Max material, and he's got 3,000 attack, but he comes out in defense at only 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
With most of our vanillas and rabbit decks, most of our Mermail Prophecy, so on and so forth, is easily going to run over that defense.
Yeah.
Could be a great little wall to stop an attack, but it's not as powerful as it looks at first glance. You have to read through that entire effect.
Yeah, it's once you read through the entire thing, you're going, oh, right.
Looked good at first, okay. Maybe there's something better.
It's like, a lot of our budget cards that we've mentioned. When you can't play those big top dollar meta cards, those budget cards are some of the cards that I would start looking towards.
Because there are cards available that are a bit cheaper than some of your expensive cards that are pretty comparable to what you're going to get out of a high-priced card.
Yeah.
Something people started looking at with things being trap heavy that had been overlooked for years with Seven Tools of the Bandit.
Oh, love Seven Tools.
But it had been overlooked for so long until people were starting to look for a budget answer to cards like Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, Mirror Force now that it's at 2, Torrential now that it's at 2, yada yada yada, so on and so on, because we are in such a trap heavy meta. So they wanted to look at a budget card.
Yeah.
So never forget that you do still have those old cards available that can be just as powerful as these new cards that are being released. Any other areas of reading your cards fully you want to cover?
Other than, like, trying to figure out exactly the wording for this one. Because there's always that. You know what? No, actually. I decided to just go, nope, let my brain go.
Okay, well, Eddie's brain is on vacation at the moment.
It's going on vacation for a good 3 months, so, I'm taking my college vacation and going, yay, I'm happy.
So, in site news, want to congratulate Frankenberry for making the Magic moderator. SM has moved back into the Magic area. Not an administrator, but he's helping out back in the Magic area. Genzo's taking a commanding lead on the race to 8,000. We're getting closer and closer to hitting that spot, so if you want the chance to win that Exodia mat, bring your friends. I mean, it's nothing more than telling your friends, hey, we got a great community here. Come join. They put your name down as the referrer when they register. Hey, you get people added on. Whoever has the highest amount of referrals when we hit 8,000 wins the mat.
And it's because of E-Roll J's for the mat, yes?
Yes. Well, no. That one I paid for. But if you haven't looked, we do have some new prizes from E-Roll J. We have 8 iPhone covers with our various banners from our skins on them. We have the God card, the Jace iPhone cover. We have the Breaker iPhone cover, and we have the Caius iPhone cover. So we have those. We have 6 new mats that are going to be going out in various contests and giveaways, and of course we got more Calci Jotters. Make sure that you're clicking on that link at the top if you're looking for a custom-made playmat. These guys are pretty good, and if you use the code MTCG 2013, you'll get $5 off your order. So basically, it helps cover shipping and handling. Make sure you're here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays is our WCS championships. Got the chance to wear the champion tag and bragging rights for a week. And Thursdays, of course, are our flash tournaments where you have the opportunity to go into a theme tournament. And right now, the prize is for an Inzektor Ladybug mat. And everybody's pretty close in points, so it's anybody's game. So play yourself, bring your friends. You're getting something for free just for showing up. And I think that's about it. So I'll let Eddie dance us out, and we hope you enjoyed this week's podcast.
I'm always dancing us out. I'm always dancing us out. I'm hoping I do something original next week because I'm still dancing us out.